Hello everyone and welcome back to Nintendo Everything Refresh, the weekly news show where we give you a roundup of what is new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. I'm your host Nicolas Serpa and we are joined by the whole gang today. We've got the wonderful Dennis Gagliardato.
Hello, hello.
We've got the man, the myth, the legend, Luiz Estrella.
Hey everyone, a pleasure to be here as always.
It's a pleasure to have you, Luiz. And we have also got the cream of the crop, Nicolas Shade.
Hello everyone.
All right, folks, big news week. We are getting right into the summer gaming reveals season, as everyone is very well aware at this point. We're going to start the show by talking about the Pokemon trailer that came out this week and the surprising amount of new details that that trailer revealed about the game. We're going to talk a little bit about Sonic Frontiers. That game also had a big gameplay show out earlier this week, so there's a lot to talk about with that. That's Sonic's first big game in quite a while, if you're a fan of the 3D entries. We're going to talk a little about Romancing Saga, Minstrel song, which is a remaster that is coming out later this year. And we're going to close out the show by talking a little about Super Nintendo World, which is got a little bit of news this week and is opening next year. But before we get to all that, everyone, let's talk Pokemon for a little bit. This was recently revealed, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, coming out November 18th. Probably going to be Nintendo's big holiday game, at least as far as we know at this point. I'm sure they have something else in the pipeline, but as far as we know, this is their big end of the year release right now. Who here is our big resident Pokemon fan? Because I like Pokemon, but it's been a while since I've really deeply enjoyed a Pokemon game, you know?
Yeah, that probably me, but it's possible that Luiz and Nicolas could be huge Pokemon fans as well. I mean, I've been playing since I was 7, and I haven't missed one since. So I mean, it's like embedded into my DNA at this point. Despite all my criticisms, I can't it's a part of me. I can't get rid of it. So
well, of course, you can't be a fan of anything nowadays without also just completely having to tear it apart too, right?
Yeah, of course, exactly. Yeah. Plus, we do that professionally, so I mean, it's
Absolutely.
Kind of in our nature anyway.
Literally our jobs.
Right.
I think Nicolas and Dennis are probably the biggest fans here. Because I'm just like Nick, I enjoy the series, but nothing crazy. Just a casual Pokemon player, I would say.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I would say I'm probably similar to Dennis in that it is definitely a major part of my personality and is one that I am trying to cut back on a little bit.
Yeah.
Trying to cut back on? Oh, no. Well, all right. So, Nicolas, then I'm really curious.
Talk about it.
What is give me your hot take on Lechonk. It's the Pokemon everyone's talking about these days.
Let's hope it doesn't evolve into Lechungus.
Ooh, that is a good question. Let me ring up the folks at Nintendo Treehouse and throw that their way. No, I mean, I think this was a great trailer. As someone who has a casual admiration for Pokemon, but is not a huge fan necessarily, I really feel like this is the game that is bringing in a lot of that innovation that people have been asking for. You've got the full open world in a mainline game, and it looks great in my opinion, just from a visual perspective. I'm sure, it's part of it is they're probably showing off the docked gameplay in the trailer, but it looks so crisp and clean and colorful, and this game also has co-op. They revealed full online co-op for up to 4 players, which, I mean, Dennis, I feel like that's a pretty big deal for Pokemon fans.
Yeah, no, that definitely is. I think this trailer in particular also, I noticed right away, looked a lot more crisp than the first trailer too.
Yeah.
The first trailer, I just remember looking at it and going oh my god, it still looked good. It looked visually appealing, right? It looked like they essentially took the Arceus engine, but then definitely polished it up tenfold. However, there were still some issues with it, you just oh, well, that looks like that's super low resolution, and so on and so forth. But this trailer, everything about it looked really nice. Everything was visually appealing, everything was vibrant, everything was polished. So, and to be fair, it's been quite a few months since the last trailer, so I'm sure that time has they've definitely taken advantage of that time since then, and I'm sure they will up until release. So it'll look hopefully even better, which is, and it's already looking great. So, I remain optimistic.
Yeah, I'm very excited about just kind of the way they designed the world. I know with the Pokemon games, they love to kind of make these inspired versions based on real life cities and places. And they're kind of going for like a Spain, like Mediterranean vibe, is kind of what I'm getting from this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, even the professors. I mean, like they're named. Wait, so if you get Scarlet,
Oh,
you
yeah.
get Professor Sada, right? And if you get Pokemon Violet, you get Professor Tura, right? Now those are short for Pasada and Futuro, which past and future
Oh.
respectively, right? So like, yeah, it's a fun little
Okay.
play on words there. So yeah, no, the whole Spain thing, they're really trying to channel that, and honestly, it looks great and it's super refreshing for the series. So yeah, yeah, I don't know. I'm just it's hard to find the words because I'm actually like really excited this time around because like you were saying earlier, it's a big step forward that I think we've all wanted for a long time, and we haven't really seen that, I feel, since X and Y, right? Because X and Y was the first time we saw it go fully 3D, and then Sun and Moon came around and it was just kind of like more of that, and then Sword and Shield came around, or even Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon before that, and it was just like, okay, well, it's that game all over again. And then Sword and Shield came out and it's just like, yep, that's 3D Pokemon, but it didn't feel revolutionary in
It was a half step, basically.
exactly right. Yeah, and you knew that they could do so much more with the Switch hardware, right? And I think now we're finally in a place where it's like, especially after Arceus kind of giving us that sort of preview, if you will, of them being like, okay, look, now we're ready to take that big leap and move the series forward in a more modern way.
Yeah, Louise, I'm curious, you've been playing through some big open RPGs lately. Are you excited for this kind of idea of we're finally getting this big, fully open Pokemon adventure? I mean, obviously we had Legends Arceus, but this is, I think, the tentpole release that a lot of people have been asking for.
Yeah, for sure. I think since the first trailer, I was really excited when I saw that we saw such a big map for a Pokemon game. And I think that right now, Pokemon Company has again said that this is actually an open world. So I guess you have the whole world to explore. Because with Legends Arceus, it was like an exploration, but it was like a system of missions and quests. So it was not actually fully connected in a way that we are used to see on open world games. Now, I'm curious to see what Dennis and Nicolas think about that, but what I'm going to say right now. But being completely honest, I'm still excited for this game, but I think I was more excited before seeing this new trailer. So, let me explain. When I saw Scarlet and Violet for the first time, I was under the impression that we are going to see more of a lot of stuff that we saw in Legends Arceus. A lot of that stuff with exploration of the new battle system, of that new engaging way to play Pokemon. And now seeing this trailer, I see a lot of stuff that to me feels like, at least for me, a casual player who plays like the story modes of a Pokemon game, it feels like regressing, We are back to capturing Pokemons only on the battle. You don't have to throw your Pokeball with aiming like we did in Pokemon Legends Arceus. We don't have that, the battle, looking at the battle in this game, it looked to me exactly how it was in Sword and Shield, which is the classic Pokemon style that the competitive scene has to see that same style on the mainline Pokemon games. So I kind of understand that, but to me it is a little frustrating to see a lot of the stuff in Legends Arceus not carrying to this game. I don't know if you guys always were under that same impression. I'm still really excited because the open world concept looks amazing. The game looks very beautiful, but it feels to me like it will be a little more classic Pokemon style than the very bold progressive look that we had with the gameplay on Legends Arceus. So I'm still excited, but maybe I think these two games were probably developed at the same time, Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet. So it makes sense that Legends Arceus, we do not had the time yet to Legends Arceus actually influence this game. So yeah, I'm curious to see the approach that we'll see, but I'm a little disappointed that it seems that it is not as Legends Arceus as I thought it would be.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with you. I did expect this to be the case after the first trailer because, like you mentioned, the games have been developed side by side, and I I was under the impression that this was probably going to be the more traditional game, since I believe this is the same team that produced Sword and Shield and most of the other mainline ones. But it's still disappointing in some regards to see some of the things Arceus doing that people really enjoy just not being in here. Again, it makes sense why this isn't the case, but man, I really wish we still had that form of catching, or hoping that the battles, like the battle animations in the trailer, we see Lechonk do a tackle, I believe, and it's the same thing as the past games where the tackle is hitting the opponent from like half the screen away.
Lurching forward.
Yeah, versus Arceus where it, it's not much, but at least it moved towards your Pokemon when there was
They
an attack.
touched each other. Yeah, the Pokemon
Yeah,
actually
like
hit.
little things I don't know.
I mean,
yeah.
it's hard to please everyone. I mean, I think
for sure,
there are a
for
lot
sure.
of people who really enjoyed how Pokemon Legends Arceus took the battles into real time, but that's a pretty drastic change. And there are a lot of people who like Pokemon for its turn-based combat and for the way that it kind of frames these battles against the different Pokemon. So, I mean, yeah, and I do think these games had to have been developed around the same time. So, I think depending on how this one is received, if people are still really liking the turn-based combat after this game comes out, and they think, hey, these other innovations that they added, the open world, the online co-op, which I'm really curious to see how that will work. These are great. This is enough. That's all the innovation we want for now, which I think could be the case for a lot of the people who prefer the turn-based combat. But if, on the other hand, everyone on the internet is like, oh, we really wish this had the real-time combat, then maybe the next generation will see it. But I do feel like the turn-based nature is just a pretty big part of Pokemon's identity, and I don't think they'll ever totally switch over to real-time,
Yeah, and fundamentally, it's not necessarily a terrible thing that they're going with the older style. It's just different, and they could improve on it, so it's not, it's still improved from past generations. I also feel like the battle system of Arceus was never going to work in Scarlet and Violet, just because it doesn't work against another player currently. There's too many situations where you make a move before the other player has a turn to react in Arceus that it just would not work on a competitive, like, PvP standpoint. So it makes a lot of sense why that would be changed. But in terms of just other features that Scarlet and Violet is bringing to the table, I am optimistic, but I still have a lot of doubts, personally.
Okay.
I'm of the opinion that while the trailer was good, it still left me asking a lot. I think the graphics are definitely better. I still feel like it still looks way too jagged, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's a lack of anti-aliasing. It's something that other games like Arceus have had as well, where it just feels a little bit off. To me, it almost reminds me of something like seeing The Witcher 3 on Switch, where it looks like a game that was almost designed for something with better hardware and then just kind of downgraded. It just looks a little bit off to me in that regard. But I mean, that's not inherently a huge deal, and it's not like the game looks completely awful. It's just a specific detail. More importantly,
I think. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying. More importantly, in terms of actual gameplay, the always on the online potential is really cool, and the open world is really cool. But I've yet to see how that's going to be implemented, and both of those are going to be very key. Because the only thing we saw in terms of the multiplayer is that people can be in the same world, and they can trade. And fundamentally, I don't know if that would be enough to really, not say justify the feature, but to really make it feel fulfilling. Because as it is, we can already trade with people, we can already battle people. I hope there's more player-to-player interaction in the world if this is something that they're allowing. Like if, for instance, one person is in the middle of a wild battle with another Pokemon, can the other person join the battle? Or are they forced to just watch the other person kind of stand there awkwardly while the battle goes on their screen? Like, is there going to be some real interaction that kind of makes this feature worth it, or are we going to be stuck to just, hey, you can run circles around each other and also you can trade in battle, which I don't feel would be a full implementation of the system, but that's just something we have to kind of wait and see, and I hope we learn more about that.
Yeah, I do hope that it is something that they do elaborate on further, because I would like to see that system be something that is fully fleshed out, right? Like you were saying. But all those concerns are completely valid too. And things I've thought of as well, of like, when someone's in battle, what's that going to look like? And also, wouldn't it be a little odd anyways, because you are going to have, assumingly, those version-specific Pokemon as well, right? So what they see on their screen might be different from what you see on your screen, right? For people who own 2 different copies. Yeah. So it'll be just kind of interesting how they implement that. But also, I just really hope that this is something that they do flesh out and test rigorously, because just basing off of what we've seen in the past, the first thing that comes to mind immediately is the wild area in Pokemon Sword and Shield, which ran horrendously. I had to turn that thing off, man.
Yeah.
I was getting 10 frames max, you know what I mean? And it was bad. Like, it was really bad. Like, I have to let people know beforehand, like, look, if you want to play together, great, but I'm not, you can't just, go ahead and join me. It's just not going to happen. I don't want random people joining in, or having these little micro servers that I get sort of phased into. I just, absolutely not. It would just ruin the experience for me. So I hope that this is something that is done a little more seamlessly. But yeah, I mean, it all remains to be seen, really. I mean, a lot of questions, a lot of valid concerns regarding the multiplayer, but also I'm on the website now, and it seems like the co-op that's implemented, it seems like you can pretty much play through the entire game almost with someone, or with up to 4 people. It's not just going to be, the trading and the battling. It just seems, because they also say here you will be able to explore the various locations of the region in these games with other players. You can discover new Pokemon and explore unfamiliar areas with your friends and family, opening the door to an adventure more precious and fun than ever. So that sounds to me like
that's promising.
You can more or less go through the entire game, with 3 additional people.
I mean,
and
I would be really surprised if that was the case, to be honest. I mean, I think I think it's, the idea of, like, you're probably going to run into people in the open world. You're probably going to be able to do a lot of exploring and take on battles and stuff, and it's probably going to feel pretty seamless. But maybe this is not fair of me to judge at this point, but I'm just not optimistic that the Pokemon Company has the chops to. I mean, we all know how they deliver their narratives, so how are they going to make the narrative, like, engaging and seamless for 4 people to go through at once? Are they going to rebalance gyms around that? How... I feel like... I don't know. It could happen. I mean, nothing's impossible. But I get the sense that this is not going to be... It's not going to be Temtem, for example.
No. But also, like, I mean, it's... But it's also not a new concept, right? It's a concept that's been around for ages. So if MMOs like Warcraft or Final Fantasy 14 or Eon and stuff like that, they all have cutscenes and elaborate cutscenes at that, right? That that are all happening more or less in real time with servers filled with real people around you. Hopefully that's something that can be figured out within a game like this as well. I mean, this is $1 billion company we're talking about,
Yeah.
But, obviously that doesn't show a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that's kind of fundamentally the issue, though, right? Is if this was, say, like Monolith Soft or the team behind Breath of the Wild or something like that, I wouldn't necessarily have these concerns, because at its core I would think, like, hey, they've proven themselves in the past. I know they can make, like, a solid open world or semi-open world or whatnot. I know they can have, like, decent balancing or whatever, but, like, I haven't gotten that from the Pokemon Company in years. I do not have the confidence, because I don't have any past examples. I mean, BDSP, not the best example for stuff like that. Sword and Shield, in terms of having the wild area, like Dennis mentioned, it was not a good attempt at an open world, or like a quote-unquote, like a semi-open world, an open area. And the multiplayer for that did not really work. Arceus is better, But like we said, I don't know how much it's going to be able to pull from Arceus because it was developed alongside it and presumably had two different teams working on it. Yeah. So I'm optimistic. Well, I'm hoping it's going to be good. I really, really want it to be good. I just don't know that I have, the confidence to back that up.
I think. I will. Go on, Nick.
Oh, I was just going to say, I will say, like, from a visuals perspective, I do think this game looks significantly better than Pokemon Legends Arceus. And I don't know if it's just the way they're using the colors. I don't know if it is just the way the world feels a little more full with things to do. I think those are big parts of it. But that, to me, is promising. It does look visually like a big step up from both the previous games. And from what we saw in the trailer, I mean, I remember even back with Sword and Shield, talking about, the performance of that game. They didn't even really try to hide it in the trailers, when they were showing off the wild area. It didn't even look that good. It was kind of the same thing for Pokemon Legends. But so far, this game looks like it's running smoothly. And so I at least am feeling optimistic that they have made some of these back-end improvements. But yeah, anyways, sorry, Luiz, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, to your point, it is kind of baffling that, and I said that a lot of times, but Pokemon, which is basically Nintendo's most profitable franchise, not technically Nintendo, but Nintendo own part of the brands and all of that, it is the series that we are most receiving games unpolished from Nintendo. I mean, sometimes it's crazy how Pokemon games are delivered with a lot of bugs, or like the wild area that Dennis said, going to less than 10 FPS. I can't remember another Nintendo games with this kind of problem. So it is kind of weird how unpolished those games are. And it's the thing, they always are fun. So I'm not blaming who buy those games, because the formula is so good, so fantastic. And I think they are always trying something different, something new, but the execution is not always anyway, it's not always fantastic. But I think that, as usual with Pokemon games, we are going to receive a lot of trailers. We know that they like to drip feed this kind of content, and I'm looking forward to see a trailer where they focus on exploration, because I think this trailer that we saw right now almost did not show a lot of exploration, which I think will probably be one of the most important stuff inside the game. There was not a lot of shots like we had with Legends Arceus trailers showing the horizon and all of that. So I'm curious to see what we'll actually be able to do in this open world, to see if it will work or not. But as Nicolas and as Danny and as you Nick, I'm optimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic for this game.
Okay, so I just have one closing question, and this is just more out of personal curiosity. But I'm curious, so like, the various Pokemon games, a lot of them seem to introduce some type of combat. I don't want to call it a gimmick, but it's like a new mechanic that they kind of tend to hype up in the advertising. Like we had the Dynamaxing with Sword and Shield, right? Which was just like big Pokemon, basically. And then there's like, like the, Mega Evolutions or I don't know all of them because, like I said, I'm not a huge Pokemon fan. But I'm wondering, do you guys think this game is going to have a combat gimmick like that? Do you think they're going to try something else, or do you think it's going to be pretty straightforward from a combat perspective?
I do. I mean, I know they're always trying to like implement something new into each series, right? But the thing is like I can't even get excited about this stuff because there are always these throwaway ideas, right? Like the last thing I was like really excited for were the Mega Evolutions, because I liked the idea of having these temporary, more powerful evolutions that were almost kind of designed with this sort of philosophy, kind of like Digimon, right, where like they can always revert back to their form before, right? So but then they got rid of that on the next game, right? And then it's they're like, okay, well now let's do the Z moves, and then which I thought I didn't really have a problem with that, but then then what happened when Sword and Shield came around? No, let's get rid of that, and then let's do this. They had two names for it: Gigantamaxing, Dynamaxing. Yeah, make it big. That's kaiju battles. Let's just go. But then that'll be gone, of course, because that's another throwaway idea. I just can't get excited for these things anymore. If these were things that were ideas that were like, okay, let's just add another new layer of depth to the series, then that'd be awesome, right? If Mega Evolutions were still a thing, cool. If Z moves were still a thing, cool. But to be fair, looking at it, I think a lot of these different gimmicks, if that's what you want to call them, are once they stack into each other, they can get crazy, right? Like you don't want a Dynamaxed Mega Evolution doing Z moves.
Well, maybe you do.
Wild.
I don't know.
So, well, maybe you do. Maybe you do. Yeah, absolutely. But I think if things would get a little out of hand. But yeah, I'm sure there'll be a new crazy gimmick, and then that'll be just for this one, and then we'll forget about it on the next generation. So it's something I can't even get excited over it. Yeah.
But that's the thing, right? We know that it has to be something that will not change drastically the combat, because we have all the competitive scene, we have all that stuff, so it is kind of limiting to them to what they are going to think about it. I think after what we saw with Sword and Shield, which they basically just made the Pokemons large, I think they should just return with the Mega Evolution, because I think it was the one that received the most positive reception, and to me all of that stuff looks very just because of the aesthetic, they give us cool animations and all of that, but in the gameplay aspect I don't think they make such a huge difference to the experience, and I think the Mega Evolution was probably my favorite.
Yeah, personally, I'm not confident that this game is going to have a combat gimmick, because I think they usually reveal it by the second trailer. It seems like they use this mostly to focus on, hey, this is open world and you can play multiplayer with your friends. So I'm assuming that might be like the generational gimmick, essentially. But I mean, we'll just have to see. I really hope for Mega Evolution to be back, if any of them are going to be back, because I think that was definitely the best one, and the one that most warrants a return. But fundamentally, I just think this is going to be played a bit pretty straight when it comes to the battle system. Maybe add a few things from Arceus in terms of the new statuses, but that would be it.
See, but then I start to worry, right? Where it's just like, if this is what the draw is going to be this time around, the open world, is that something that they're willing to scrap for the next generation?
Oh no!
So that's what scares me. I hope not,
that would
right?
be
But
upsetting.
it's remains to be seen. I mean, we'll find out in three years from now.
Well,
so.
more like 2 years.
Well, that's true.
The
Yeah,
next
keep it going.
generation
It's
is
faster and
just the next generation is just a hard reset. It's black and white Game Boy pixel art.
It's
like
another
everything else
Gen
is
1
gimmick.
remake.
Yeah.
Well, everything's got to use some like specific terminology too.
Of
Like
course.
Ultra or Deluxe. So this one will be like, I don't know, like Scarlet and Violet Max Plus. Or
There you go.
I don't know. So
All right, folks. Well, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is coming out November 18th. I'm sure we still have plenty of time before that game comes out, so expect to hear us talk a bit more about that game the next time we get some news about it. But there's another game we wanted to talk about that is also kind of going through some changes, and that is the next Sonic game, Sonic Frontiers, which is Sonic's big open world debut. I know there are people out there who are like, oh, but Sonic Lost Worlds had open elements. No, this is like this is Sonic's big open world moment. And there were a lot of questions about it and just kind of how it would play in this open world environment. And we finally got our first look at some gameplay last week, courtesy of IGN. And I just want to say, they have their IGN first thing, which is like, okay, yeah, it's kind of cool. But just the name of it always makes me laugh, because it always makes me picture the person who always writes first in the comments. Like, first, I'm first.
right.
But that's irrelevant. Anyways, so we got two trailers. We got one that kind of focused on the world itself and how Sonic moves through it, and just a look at some of the lighter gameplay mechanics. And then we got one focused on like a boss battle that kind of gave us a showcase of what the combat will look like in this game. And my first thought watching this was that it looks to be like a Sonic game where you have to think a little bit more, which is, and that's not to disparage Sonic games, but I think one of the reasons why a lot of people love those games is because, with the way the sense of speed is and the way you move through the world, it's this very fast-paced, cathartic roller coaster experience. Not to say that there can't be some platforming challenges here and there, but this seems to be a much more, I don't know what the right word is, contemplative. Like you really have to, you're setting your own goals, you're exploring the world, you've got these puzzles scattered around, it looks like. I don't know. Luiz, what do you think about Sonic Frontiers now that we've seen some gameplay from it?
So I was really excited for this game since it was announced I'm a huge Sonic enjoyer. I'm the kind of person who really like the 3D games from the series, so I love Sonic Adventure, Sonic Generations, all Sonic Colors, all the good 3D Sonics, and I was really excited for that, and I think Sega was saying about making the biggest Sonic game ever and all that stuff. And here's the thing, I liked a lot of what I saw. I think I liked how open the game, how it really is an open Sonic game like we never saw before. So it really feels fresh after Sonic Forces. So it really feels like they are trying to do something new. But looking at these gameplay videos that IGN posted, the game seems very rough to me. Like it seems like a beta, an alpha version of the game. It really feels like it is still very early in development. I feel like the gameplay still is very similar to the gameplay of Sonic Forces, just in a different environment. I feel like Sonic models, his animations are a little rough, and considering that this is running in a super PC, I think the graphics are not very impressive. There's a lot of popping when Sonic is running and some stuff is appearing on the screen. So it really looks rough to me still. Like I don't think it is a good idea to show the game in the state that it is, and I hope that Sega will delay it even more, I don't know, for next year or for 2 years, because it seems like the game has many good ideas. I like the idea of making the combat a little more thoughtful, a little more giving, as you said, Nick, that you have to think in the Sonic game. It's not just running fast and all of that stuff. I like the idea of the open area, of giving more exploration, but so far I'm not convinced by the game in the way that it looks. It feels a little... There's not the momentum that we want to see on a Sonic game yet, and I just want to see more. It didn't feel like a game yet, you know. It feels like they just put a Sonic in an open area and he's running. So I still didn't get a good grasp of how the game will work, and so far this has kinda lowered my expectations for the final product. And also, I don't know how this game will run on Switch, because so far, if this is running, as I said, in a super PC in this way, I don't know how it will run on Switch. So I'm curious to see that.
Yeah, that was my thought immediately.
So basically,
immediately.
I like the ideas, but so far the execution, I'm really worried about that. And we all know that Sonic Team has a lot of mistakes in their history. So I'm a little worried about the game, to be honest. Although I like they're trying something new, it feels fresh. But yeah, I would say it's similar to how I feel to Scarlet and Violet, I would say. But yeah, that's my overall impression.
Do you think, given the public reception to those first two trailers, Sega is regretting making this an entire month of previews?
I think, but here's the thing. What gets to my mind is who's decided to do that? Who recorded that gameplay and thought, that's a nice way to show the game, you know? It really, I think it is kind of weird. It would be better, I don't know, to make a edited trailer showing just the best parts or something like that. It really looks a little rough right now.
Yeah. I mean, even the gameplay is edited, but it's just not very dynamic. Even, like, they have this track playing the entire gameplay, which is like this very soft, soothing piano track, which does not match with the vibe that they're trying to show at all.
Yeah, you know, I feel like everything you guys are saying, I mean, they're all totally valid, like, analysis of this game. And a lot of people online have been saying the same things, you know, like, oh, it looks like a tech demo, it looks like they just plop Sonic into this world, and it does look a little rough around the edges, I will say. Like, I did notice a lot of the environmental pop-in. I think a lot of that stuff is going to get ironed out in time for release. I mean, this is a game that is coming out supposedly this holiday, so they do still have time to work on some of the technical elements. They might not, but I mean, my personal opinion is I really like almost everything I saw, to be honest. Sonic Team, they do really, I mean, not everyone likes all their games, and that's totally fair, but you gotta give them points for always trying something different. And, you know, as someone who really enjoys also some of the older 3D Sonic games in the series, I think this is a really refreshing take for Sonic. I thought the combat looked fairly tactical. Not like tactical. You know, this is not Fire Emblem or anything, but you know, positioning seems to play a big role. You know, targeting specific parts on these enemies seems to play a big role. I really like the mechanic where he kind of like goes around and circles the enemies to kind of stun them and launch them up in the air. You know, kind of having this aerial combat looks really fun to me. I think, you know, the disparity between how Sonic looks and plays and like putting him in this big world, I think that's really what's jarring to a lot of people. And I think that is the one area where I'm like, yeah, this doesn't really feel like a Sonic world, you know? I don't know. Dennis, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I'd be lying if I said I didn't want an open world Sonic game for quite some time now. So like when I saw this, I was actually relatively excited. However, I'd also be lying if I said it didn't look empty and I didn't have my doubts, right? So like I'm definitely, you know, I have the same feeling that everyone on the internet has, right? Where I'm going to echo the statements of it looked, even before I even read the comments, it was the first thing that came to mind of like, oh my, this looks like every other fan-made Unreal Engine project I've ever seen, where they just put Sonic in the middle of this, preset Unreal Engine landscape, and then they just go, right? And it looked just like that. It didn't have that multi-million-dollar budget look to it, when I've literally been seeing this exact fan-made project for years and years for somebody who's doing this in their living room, you know, with $10 in their pocket. So like, you know, it didn't impress me in that regard. However, I love the idea of an open world Sonic game because I don't want to be restricted to just just a glorified roller coaster, right? I want that freedom of like, you know, just go, right? And no limitations. And honestly, when you think about it, you probably want a lot of those vast landscapes with not much in between, right? Because you don't want Sonic crashing into everything every 10 seconds, or not even 10 seconds, every 2 seconds, really, right? Because Sonic's fast. It might be a little too difficult to register everything that's happening on the screen at once. I do want them to fix the pop-in issue, absolutely. But for the player and for, you know, the average person that's gonna play this, you know, depending on the types of games they play, they might not have the best response time, right? So, I mean, you probably want all that open space. However, I think there's a smart way to utilize that open space and a really poor way to utilize that open space. Right now, it looks like it's very poor because it looks too empty. There's no personality to it. I don't even really worry that much about the sorts of like the clashing of the art directions, right? Because that's another thing that I've been hearing of, like, oh, well, Sonic doesn't look like he fits in this world. I think he fits fine. You know, you look at the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. He's a hedgehog surrounded by humans in a normal city. Like, well, you know, it's not,
I don't know if I'd use that as our metric for
well, I know.
grounded
right.
Sonic.
But like, right. But I mean, Sonic definitely has a look to it, right? But it's also, I think Sonic's also flexible enough where he can kind of get away with those crazy sorts of changes in his environment. So, I mean, you know, again, not the best example, but Sonic 06 is a perfect example of that, right? Yeah. Of like, why are you saving this human princess? You know, and then you got some weird romance thing going on. I don't know what was going on there, but it's Sonic 06. We're going to talk about that. But, and then, you know, even Sonic's like something like Sonic Unleashed, where Sonic Unleashed was all over the place, man. You know,
right.
So you went to like a college university at one point. It just didn't make sense. Even Sonic Adventure, you know, where you're just, you know, you go to like a place that looks like Miami, essentially. You know, so Sonic isn't, you know, it's not as far-fetched to see Sonic in this situation as you think. But I do want more done to the environment that is a little more seamless and thoughtful, because, you know, you see these rails that are connected to nothing, right? These rails that are just arbitrarily placed, and they just look like generic rail assets that have just been connected to the ground. There's no, you know, actual like railing connecting them to like a wall or structure, really. Like, there's no thought process. And I'm just thinking in terms of like, well, Luiz, you said you're an architect, right? So like, so do you look at this and go, well, that doesn't make sense? Like, structurally speaking, no one would just randomly place that there. There's a reason why that should be there, right? So, I'm just trying to think in terms of design and just structurally speaking. Here. A lot of it strictly doesn't make sense to me. But I am looking forward to it. I am going to keep my optimism, reserved for the most part, or in check rather. But yeah, I don't. That game's going to be interesting to see how it runs on Switch. Right now, like the moment I saw this game and like the moment they announced it, even before the footage, when they had that sort of pre-rendered trailer last year, I believe at the Game Awards last year, I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm picking this up on Xbox. Even though it said it was coming to Switch, I was like, no, I'm picking this up on Xbox because I already know a game like this, absolutely not. I don't want to see this on Switch at all, So, but we'll see what happens. So.
I think Nicolas also talked about it. The way that they showed it was kind of weird because if the showcase was like, oh, we are doing this specific mission, we have to go from point A to point B, and then you would see how Sonic explored that space, or if any puzzle appears during the gameplay, like a normal video game. But the way that they show does not look like a video game, does not show like you have something to do, you have a place to go. So it was kind of hard to understand what this game was actually about. And then we have a trailer just with exploration, and then another trailer with just combat. So it is kind of weird. Why not show everything all at once? It is just that grassy area. The whole game is just that grassy area, or we are going to explore another areas. So a lot of questions.
What they've said in the past is it's an open zone game, and that leads me to think that this might be one of several different zone environments. Who knows how many will be in the game.
I would like that. Yeah, I would like to see that.
I do feel like for the most part, they're probably keeping their cards close to their chest. We don't really know much about the story. We've really seen is this raw gameplay. And yeah, I totally get the appeal, of having the idea of this flashy trailer that kind of really gets you a better sense for the energy and vibe of this game. But I will say, I really just feel like the things that I feel like they nailed in this gameplay reveal, I feel like the sense of speed is really good. I think this feels like a game where they kind of tried to take a page maybe from Mario's playbook, and it seems like the focus is on designing a world that has a lot of interesting ways to get around. I think that's why we see all these rails and all these different platforms and stuff. Like, yeah, they look strange, but in the context of making an interesting environment for Sonic to move around in, I feel pretty good about what I saw. I could see a lot of different ways for people who are into like speedrunning and platforming challenges to have fun and, kind of explore different ways to get around. And the other kind of thing that I was kind of getting the vibe from is like, I'm thinking a little bit about Bowser's Fury, which I know seems a little strange, but Bowser's Fury kind of had this very small open world, but it had these kind of isolated platforming challenges scattered around, and you could just kind of pick which one you wanted to go to next. And that's kind of what I feel like I saw a lot of in the gameplay trailer. Is you have these big towers or whatever that you have to find a way to get to the top of. There's a little bit more puzzle solving, maybe. But I don't know. To me, that's exciting. Like it's different for Sonic for sure, but I see a lot of potential, mostly from a platforming perspective.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see the good parts of it. I saw a lot of Sonic fans are still very excited, very optimistic about the game, and I can definitely see a lot of potential there. And I like your comparison to Bowser Fury because I think that's a model of design that could work. Of course, a lot of adaptations because Sonic is really, really fast. But I think something like that could work where you have those mini levels inside a gigantic area, and then you can actually pass through those many obstacles and all that stuff during the scenario. Maybe it's also the kind of stuff which is more fun to play than it is to watch. So maybe we have to wait a little bit more. But I really want this game to succeed. I think Sonic is on a very positive moment of popularity with the movie. And the collection Sonic Origins will also release. And I think it will, of course, be a success because those games are amazing. And I'm hopeful that they can deliver a good 3D Sonic game.
Yeah. We also have
Nicolas, any closing thoughts?
Oh, I was just going to say, we still have the entire month to go. I don't know if we're going to get many more gameplay previews. I know we're going to get interviews, so there's always potential for some more things to be shown off there. Maybe they tell us like what the objective is in the open world. Do you have to collect a certain amount of things, or do you have to go to a place or whatnot? There's always what we saw, even if we're not super satisfied with it, is still a relatively small portion of the gameplay. There's still more that could be shown off that gives it context or just makes it look a little bit better, so we still have to kind of wait and see, and hopefully what we'll see throughout the rest of the month will look, pretty nice.
Dennis, any closing thoughts? Sonic Frontiers?
Just to kind of echo the statements of everyone else, I am going to remain optimistic. I do want this to succeed as well, just like Luiz said. I just hope that even if it's not going to change much from what we've seen now, because let's just say there's no delays and it comes out at the latest December 2022, right? How many more assets they're going to build and add to a level remains to be seen. But let's just say specifically what the world that we've seen so far. So long as there are a bunch of collectibles and little things to do and find and search for to kind of reward that exploration, so I don't feel like I'm just randomly running around and grinding on rails that lead to nowhere. Then I'll be happy. I just want that sense of fulfillment when I'm playing something like Sonic Frontiers, and I think so long as you can fill, you can make an empty world feel full, so long as you implement the right sorts of rewards and stuff like that. And I think I always look at something like One Piece World Seeker, where that game was the first time a One Piece game went open world, or even Dragon Ball Z Kakarot after that, right? Where, they're technically empty, but there was still enough to do there that I felt fulfilled, and I was also plenty happy just running around that world, and feeling that sense of freedom, and it ended up working for those games, even though you wouldn't really expect it to. And no, honestly, a lot of the reviews won't reflect that, but trying to be as unbiased as possible, those worlds, despite being empty, like I said, it was still nice to just kind of walk through, because you at least felt like you were in that One Piece universe or that Dragon Ball universe, despite the emptiness. And again, with plenty of collectibles to find and little things to do, like fishing and little platforming challenges and things like that. Primarily with One Piece, not so much with Dragon Ball. But Dragon Ball had more so like little flying challenges and fighting challenges. But yeah, I think you can make it work so long as the content's there, even if the world itself seems empty visually. Content-wise, I think you can pack it with a decent amount of stuff to at least distract the player from the sort of the desolate landscape, if you will. So they can make it work between now and then, but ultimately, we'll see. It remains to be seen.
We will see, and we will talk about this game more. Hey, maybe in the very near future. So stay tuned. There's a lot more to talk about with this game. So come on back to our podcast in future episodes. We might just have more to talk about with this game. But we really need to move on, because we have talked about these two games and we are almost at the end of the podcast. So I want to talk a little bit more about some other stuff. One of the games that was revealed last week was Romancing Saga Minstrel Song, which is a remaster of the 2005 PS2 remaster of the original 1992 Romancing Saga. So we're getting a remaster of a remaster, courtesy of Square Enix. Now this is, I know the Saga series has been going on for a long time. We haven't really gotten a new Saga game here in the West in a while, I want to say. Dennis, do you know when the last new Saga game was?
Honestly, I couldn't say, because there's been so many remasters as of late. We've got Romancing Saga 1, 2, 3, and then now this one, right? So it's hard to really say when the last one, maybe before whatever Romancing Saga 1 remaster was, but even then, in terms of what we've gotten in the West, I'm really not sure.
Oh,
honestly.
okay.
It's literally been so long.
All right, I just Googled it because I was curious, and the last Saga game, mainline Saga game to come to the West was Saga Scarlet Grace. And I remember being salty about that game because it did not. It came to the Vita in Japan, but it did not come to the Vita in the West, and I was very upset about that.
That's right. Yep. No wonder that sounded familiar. Yeah, because I was a big Vita player back then when that was when Vita was the handheld of choice. So, yeah. So I was in the same camp as you, Nick. I was just being upset whenever things would get localized, and it was like, yeah, no, we're skipping out on Vita, PS4 only. I'm like, no, I don't want to play on PS4. I want to play on my Vita, please.
Please. Yeah. Okay. So Dennis, did you play the original Romancing Saga?
I did, actually. I think we reviewed it for the site, actually, when the remaster came out anyways. Not the original one, but when the remaster Romancing Saga came out, I think it was so long ago, but I'm pretty sure I reviewed it. It might have been Romancing Saga 2 that I reviewed. I'm
for the Switch?
Forgetting. For the Switch, correct. Yeah.
Oh.
And it was fine. I remember my biggest issue with it, however, was the input lag, because it was ported from the mobile version, which we all should be really just too familiar with at this point with Square Enix. It just didn't really translate well onto the Switch. It got patched since then, I'm pretty sure, but man, that game was hard to review. Not because it was bad, but just because of those... Just that input lag was driving me crazy, like absolutely up the wall.
It fits right in with what we saw in the Chrono Cross remaster lately. I mean, that was another kind of quasi 3D remaster that had some technical problems. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know anything about this game in particular. I do like RPGs. This one seems to have kind of a Western vibe, which seems kind of cool. I don't know. Nicolas, you are also a big RPG guy. Are you interested in... May I present to you this remaster of Romancing Saga?
I mean, there's always potential for interest in it. It does look pretty neat. I'm not sure how I feel about the character models. They look a little bit off. But
they have very large heads.
Yeah. But I mean, it's an RPG. I don't know exactly how long it is gameplay wise. I don't know if maybe like Dennis, based on the initial remaster but not second remaster, if you have like an estimate of roughly how long that game is, because if it's like a nice short little RPG, maybe like 20-ish hours, which is short for an RPG.
Ooh,
I could definitely see myself trying it out.
I got some bad news for you.
No. Well, yeah, I mean,
I just looked it up.
As far as I know, it depends. Well, what did you find, Nicolas?
According to How Long to Beat, 30 hours for the main story, 70 hours for main story plus extra, which is usually like side quests and stuff, and 90 hours if you want to do everything.
Well, it has potential. I'll have to see. I'm curious about what more we'll see about it. If it's you've mentioned it was a remaster of a pretty old SNES, of a pretty old Square RPG, yes. And those are usually pretty good. So yeah. I could definitely see myself trying it out.
Luiz, you think you're going to be able to squeeze in another massive RPG towards the end of this year?
I'm not sure. I must say that I saw the trailer recently just to see how the game looked, and it looks quite nice. I said before here on the podcast that a lot of those Square remasters I don't like, because some of these games Square used to make those backgrounds which were like static images, so when you put that in HD it became pretty clear that it was an static image with Final Fantasy IX, even Final Fantasy X, I think. So it would look quite weird, but this game everything is 3D models. So the remaster looks quite nice actually, and the character model, as you guys mentioned, is really different. I'm not that familiar with with this franchise, but I'm always happy to see Square bringing those not super popular franchises back. I'm still hopeful that one day we will see Xenogears returning, even just with a simple remaster. It's one of my dreams. But we talked recently also about Live Alive, and now with this remaster. So I love to see them going back to their older catalog, because there's a lot of those great RPGs who are just forgotten.
Yeah, it is a huge deal from a game preservation perspective. I mean, look, it's easy to bag on Square Enix. They have a lot of great things that they do, but they also have a lot of misses. And, you know, we've seen like these remasters in the past that haven't always lived up to expectations. But at the very least, I think it's great that they are preserving these games and finding ways.
I'm you know, I appreciate it at least, right? That, you know, because I think game preservation is extremely important. I think just in general, never mind how one individual feels about it, but having any sort of art form or medium, you know, you want that content preserved because you know, some things are just timeless. So when you restrict content to a certain platform, and as technology evolves and that technology starts to, you know, cease to exist, and it's still locked to a particular platform, then, you know, it becomes sort of like a fairy tale almost, right? And then you just have to kind of resort to, you know, kind of, you know, stories and memories when you want to revisit something like that otherwise, you know, there should be no reason for you to experience on your own. But yeah, I don't know, it's always weird. And in the case of Romancing Saga, actually I just looked it up, so we actually on NintendoEverything.com we actually did review Romancing Saga 2 back in 2017. That's why I couldn't remember it, and I didn't realize I gave it a thumbs down actually, so I really did not appreciate that too much. You know, to kind of summarize it, I said here, with its poor performance, banal user interface, and data mechanics, this becomes extremely hard to recommend at full price. When a game like this is going to act and perform like a mobile title on a dedicated gaming platform, it's better off to just avoid it altogether. So yeah, I was pretty pissed off about the whole thing. I mean, it really upset me, but yeah.
No, I did not even realize those games were on the Switch until you mentioned it. So that is that's totally on me. All right, folks. Well, everyone's aware now. Romancing Saga Minstrel song is coming to the Switch holiday or winter 2022, I should say. All right, I have one more topic I want to squeeze in here, and that is we got some news about Super Nintendo World. It has been open in Japan for a while, but there are two parks that are being worked on in the United States. One at Universal Studios Orlando and one in Hollywood. And the Hollywood one is further along, and we just learned it is going to be opening earlier than expected, early 2023, which I personally am very excited about because Hollywood is just a state away from me, and I've been dying to check out this Mario Kart ride. It looks like so much fun. Dennis, you're based here in Arizona. Do you think you are going to make the trip out to LA and check out this Mario Kart ride?
I would definitely like to, but then that also requires me to have to make a trip out to LA.
Yeah.
So that's the problem, but yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I would do that for Nintendo for sure. But that Mario Kart ride, I know everyone's kind of excited about it. I mean, I'm obviously excited about it. I love Mario Kart, but it didn't seem like it was much different. I mean, there's using more or less the same layout as the Super Nintendo World in Japan, right? They're not doing anything substantially different in the Western or the Universal Studios in California than they are in the one in Japan, are they? Like, I mean, just structurally speaking. Everything is more or less the same, right? Except the biggest difference, aren't they including a sort of Donkey Kong expansion this time around?
I'm not totally sure. I feel like the layouts in these rides are never like exactly the same. Like I know like Space Mountain in Florida is different than Space Mountain in Disneyland, but yeah, it's probably pretty similar for the most part. And yeah, there was talk about a Donkey Kong expansion.
Mm-hmm. I think that was for the Japan one, I want to say.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. I guess that's coming in 2024.
Gotcha. And then I guess I must have read. So I guess the one I'm thinking of is whenever they get around to building the one in Orlando, I believe, then they'll include the Donkey Kong one there. I'm assuming, but I guess the one in California won't have that Donkey Kong expansion. Either way, I mean, I've looked at so many, you know, journalist, you know, videos and fan-made videos of, you know, the entire park, the theme park in Japan, and it's wonderful. I mean, just right away you get that experience of, you know, when you first walk in to Super Nintendo World, you know, you're going through, you know, the iconic Mario green pipe, and you know you have the neon lights kind of going through as if you're sort of warping into the park, and then you get immediately transported into the entrance of, you know, Peach's Castle with the music playing from Super Mario 64. I mean, it's just, you know, as a huge Mario fan who's grown up with that series and Super Mario 64 being one of my favorite games of all time, if not my number one favorite game of all time, it's just immediately it just struck. It struck to me. And it's the whole thing just seems beautiful. And then you have Toad's Cafe, and and that just seems like a lot of fun, and all
that seems great.
Cute little Nintendo themed food. It's just a wonderful time, especially as a Nintendo fan. But even someone who's a casual Nintendo fan, or even if you just kind of know, because everyone knows Mario, right? But even if you just want to go to just be like, it seems like it could be fun. You don't play video games or whatever. I still think there's a lot there that you're going to absolutely fall in love with and enjoy for sure.
Yeah, I am. So I'm glad, Nicolas. I'm glad you mentioned the Donkey Kong expansion coming to the Japanese Universal Studios, because I'm looking at the image that they revealed for that, and here's what has me really interested. So if you look at the image, here, let me see if I can put this in our chat so you guys can see. But it basically it shows off. You've got the Super Mario World on one side, you've got the Donkey Kong Land coming in 2024 on the other side, and then you've got this big gap in the middle that looks like, I just put it in the chat. Mm-hmm. There's this big empty green area, which kind of alludes to, hey, there might be a third area that they're going to announce at some point in Japan. But it just makes me wish that like all this was coming all at once. I don't want to have to make 3 trips out to see all the different things.
They have to make Zelda, right?
Yeah.
One moment.
I do wonder if
Zelda.
The fact that Miyamoto is the one kind of heading this, I'm pretty sure that's why Donkey Kong is the second expansion. I would assume at least that's probably partly Miyamoto's influence, because obviously he's familiar with that and he probably has an attachment to the series. I wonder if Zelda would be the third one, considering that.
Pikmin then.
Yeah. They should just call it Super,
with the green, that
Super Miyamoto fit. World.
Yeah. Weren't there already Pikmin Easter eggs in the park?
Yeah, I had heard that. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It's got a real, it's got a real fun vibe from the videos I saw. When did the park open? A year ago, 2 years ago?
It was peak
about
COVID.
A year ago, yeah.
It was in the pandemic, I think. A little after, I think.
Yeah, no one could go, really.
Yeah. But there were a lot of fun videos showcasing the park in its entirety and the attractions and the little unique gimmicks you could use with the I think it was the bracelet you had. You could find Easter eggs and whatnot. It's a very fun idea, and I hope that the US branches will emulate that same kind of fun kid-like joy of playing a game and finding secret Easter eggs, but in a theme park.
Yeah. Luiz, do you think you would ever come out and check out the park?
Oh, I would love to, because it is really exciting that it is coming to the US, because even though I live in Brazil, it is way easier for me to go to the US than it is to go to Japan, because I don't even speak Japanese. And it is pretty common here in Brazil. People go to Orlando, to those parks, to Disney, to the Harry Potter park also. So people, it's a place that everyone in the world likes to go. So I never been to the US, but if there's one park that I would love to see from the Universal Studios, it definitely would be the Mario one. As Dennis and Nicolas said, I already watched a lot of videos of people going in there and seeing the Toad Cafe, all the props that they create to make it really feel like you are in a level of Mario. It seems to be a fantastic, surreal experience. Now, something that always made me curious is that it is called Super Nintendo World, but we just have a Mario, and there's this Donkey Kong expansion. But it makes me wonder why it is not a Nintendo overall park. Maybe because not every IP is as recognizable as Mario. And Donkey Kong is also, even though Donkey Kong games are not super popular nowadays, the Donkey Kong brand, I think it is very recognizable. And these kind of parks kind of put Nintendo into more prominently into the pop culture, this is a worldwide phenomenon. It has even a park, so it is to the same size of something like Harry Potter, of something like Disney. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if one day we'll see a Pokemon park, because I think that's a franchise perfect for that, and people would go crazy in a Pokemon park.
That would be awesome. There was literally a Pokepark game. They have no reason not to.
True.
That's going to depend on what Pokemon Company does as opposed to Nintendo. But that would be really neat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
But honestly, like Pokemon, I feel like it's big enough where it could warrant just its own theme park entirely. So like, but honestly, with that little space in the middle, because I didn't even like think about that. With all the woods, immediately what came to mind was actually like the Kokiri Forest or like the Lost Woods from Zelda. Like I feel like they could implement something like that there, just right in that middle to kind of really utilize all that space, and then maybe build. Hyrule Castle there as well. I mean, I think you could fit really nicely in between those two.
Well, I'm probably going to wait until they open and just everything all at once, so I don't have to, use my whole travel vacation budget. Turns out, but, all right, folks. Well, that just about wraps up our show for the week. But before we say goodbye for another long 7 days, let's just go around the circle. What's everyone been playing? Nicolas, let's start with you. What have you been playing this last week? I could make a guess, but yeah, okay. That was gonna be my guess.
Shock and awe all around. But grinding through Octopath. I mean, I've talked about it before. It's fun. I don't have much more to say. I'm getting closer and closer to the end. So,
have the stories started to converge in any meaningful way at this point?
I don't know if I want to necessarily say that just in case of spoilers. There are little hints here and there of like, hey, these like stories are interconnected in some way, as in like they take place in the same world. But I'll reserve more of that. I'll reserve more talk of that just for myself because just in case we have any people listening that haven't played the game or are interested in it. Yeah, I think it's much better to go in fresh and not necessarily knowing what to expect.
Okay. No, that is a good call. All right, cool. Octopath Traveler. Yep. Do you think you're going to be done with it in the near future?
I think I might be done with it within the next 2 weeks. Ideally, I would like to be done with it before Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak comes out. Because once that happens, I'll definitely spend a few weeks just playing Monster Hunter. But yeah, I think I'll probably be done with Octopath within like 2 to 3 weeks, and then you can start hearing me talk about something else for once.
All right, looking forward to it. Louise, where are you at? You still did you finish Xenoblade 2 yet? Are you still trucking through it?
Okay, I'm still playing Xenoblade. I devoted a lot of time because I finally got Cosmos on the game. For those who doesn't play, there's a gacha system on Xenoblade 2, and I managed to get the rarest item in this gacha system. And I've always wanted to get Cosmos for such a long time, and now that I finally got it, I feel like my life has no purpose anymore. So I'm not...
You're like, that's it, I'm done. Everything's been achieved.
So I got her, and there's still a lot of things to do on the game, but I kind of paused a little on Xenoblade 2. I don't know if I will still continue playing. Maybe I want to do at least some of her quests of these characters that I got. But maybe I don't know if next week I'll still be playing. But I also wanted to talk about, and now it's a new stuff, it's about the Mario Strikers kickoff that we had with the online testing and all of that. And I managed to play a little bit. And... here's the thing, I love the mechanics, I love how the game plays, I think it's really complex, but in the demo, they force you to play cooperatively, so I had to be 2 versus 2, like every team has 2 players, and it is kind of weird because the game is really complex, and it became totally chaos because I don't know who is the character that I'm controlling, who is the character that the other person is controlling. So I think it was kind of a bad decision to make the demo only cooperatively. Yeah. But even so, the game is really good, and I'm excited for the final product. But yeah, I think it was kind of a bad call from Next Level Games or Nintendo to make the game exclusive. Like I had just 1 hour in every session, and I think I didn't have the time to actually understand what I was doing. I knew that the game had some intricate mechanics, but I never had the time to actually apply them because when I was playing online, it was total chaos. So yeah, kind of a disappointing for the demo, but I'm pretty sure the final game will be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it has that much depth that you felt like even after a couple hours of play, you still felt like you had more to learn. I mean, that to me is promising. That means the game is probably going to have a lot more longevity, hopefully, than some of the other Mario sports games.
Yeah. I think the online will be very lively from what I saw so far.
All right, you love to hear it. Did you have any, like, how was your connection, like, with Nintendo's online servers and all that jazz?
Overall, it was okay. I had some slowdowns here and there, but nothing crazy. It's a game that really depends on the context and the immediate reaction. So I would say that for Nintendo standards, it is pretty good.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. And that game is out very soon. Doesn't that come out later this week?
Yeah, actually, I think so.
Wow.
Yeah.
June 10th, I believe.
Man, that really snuck up on me. All right. Well, yeah, Mario Strikers Battle League coming out this week, apparently. Dennis, what have you been playing?
Not Xenoblade. Not yet, anyways. Funny enough is I have been wanting to revisit it myself. So,
Oh, no. Don't do it, Dennis.
So yeah, I know. So you'll get a third person saying
One of us.
Xenoblade.
One of us.
You guys are gonna make me
So,
feel like all excluded. I'm like, oh no, I want to play Xenoblade.
But don't worry, I mean, we're safe at least for the next couple episodes, I think. But we'll see. We'll see. Remains to be seen. So
All right,
who knows?
Here's the rule, though. Wait, I just gotta say, if you guys all pick up Xenoblade 3 on day one, you guys need to play a shorter game, like even just for like an hour each week, so we have something else to talk about.
Yeah,
That
I
has
was
to be
thinking
the
about
deal.
that.
All right, all right. Carry on, Dennis.
Okay, so yeah, no, honestly, lately I've been in a very like retro mood. So now, retro, or rather, not just old games, but games that sort of give off that vibe of that retro aesthetic, right? So I've been just super into like 8-bit and 16-bit stuff lately, and so I've been kind of bouncing back and forth between one of them being the Wonder Boy collection, which just came out the other day actually, and for those not familiar, Wonder Boy is a very old series that came out in the late 80s, early 90s, and they had a couple of games and then they just disappeared for like 20 years, and then randomly since like 2018 they've just been getting remasters and remakes from every direction, that
are beautiful,
from so many
beautiful
different-
games.
yeah, absolutely. The art direction is fantastic in those games, and honestly, they hold up really well. Like playing the Wonder Boy collection now, the first thing I noticed was like, wow, like these games like still look really good. Like they hold up really well visually. Mechanically though, it's a bit of a different story, right? Like they are a product of their time, right? So it can feel a little bit dated, but thankfully you have modernized mechanics. Like you have a rewind feature and a save state feature, similar to what you would see in the NES and SNES offerings from Nintendo Switch Online. So it's been really helpful because I do want to complete those games, and because the first two were arcade games, they weren't necessarily long games. They were built more so around their replay value, right? So, but these are games that I would like to beat, So I've just been kind of going through those and really enjoying those, and they again, hold up really, really well. Even though for some odd reason, despite being called a collection, it's only 4 out of the 6 games that were initially released. So not really a collection when you're missing a few, but, whatever. And then oddly enough, later this year, they have the Wonder Boy Anniversary Collection, which does have all 6. So I'm not sure why they're releasing 2 collections. Makes no sense, but Wonder Boy has always had a weird history, and it keeps going in between, changing its name from Wonder Boy to Monster World, and then, like, sometimes they use both of the names in one title. I don't know. It's a mess. But either way, those games are fun, and but the second game I've been playing is Infinite Links. I've been playing a lot of that lately, put in a bunch of hours into that, and it's just, if you're familiar with Kemco, they publish a lot of those 16-bit old school
Right.
or old school looking JRPGs that definitely harken back to that era of JRPGs, and I personally love that stuff, right? So, but if you've played one Kemco game, chances are you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. They're all more or less the same, and they do admittedly have a sort of generic structure to them. But I just
Comfort food,
Yeah, exactly, right? Comfort food, exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself. Like, it's sometimes you just want that simplicity, and you want to go back to, games that were just like that, and that's what I grew up with, and that's where I feel most at home, right? Those sorts of JRPGs of that era. So Infinite Links I'm having a great time with, and it's super accessible, and yeah, no, it's great. But again, it's a Kemco game, so you kind of know what you're getting yourself into right away and what to expect. If you've played one, chances you play one, you play them all.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's kind of how it is with Kemco. But
Hey,
but yeah, that's what I've been playing.
There is nothing wrong with comfort food in my book. I have
No,
this
not at all.
last week. Well, like I mentioned last episode, I've been playing Fire Emblem Awakening, and I've just been loving it. But I've also been playing, dipping back into some of my comfort food, which is the Forza games. I love me a good racing game, and
Really? Yeah.
I was, for some reason, I was like, I want to go back and see how some of the older, so I've been playing Forza Horizon 3, which luckily I bought it digitally before it got delisted, and it just
Yes.
it blows me away, like that game came out 6 years ago, and granted, like I'm playing it on my Series X, but it looks phenomenal. Like this 6-year-old game with this, set in Australia's gorgeous open world. I don't know how much of it is just the game just has. I mean, these games have always looked amazing. I don't know how much of it is the game itself, or if the Xbox is adding some extra oomph to it that wasn't, back on the original Xbox One release. But that's like my ultimate video game comfort food. I can boot up that game when I, am not wanting to play much else, and just race around Australia and get caught up in races and drift challenges for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, Forza Horizon 3 has something special about it, because even though I love Forza Horizon 4, there's something about Forza Horizon 3 that I still like a little bit more than 4, even though each one of these games get bigger and better technically, but there's something about Horizon 3 I can't really explain. Maybe you can explain better than I can, Nick, but there's just something about it that you get so immersed into it, and especially with that Hot Wheels expansion, I mean, things get crazy with that game. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that brought me back to that game was I saw a post on Reddit not too long ago, and it was like they were like, oh, basic Reddit argument, which Forza game is better, and someone was basically said oh, the thing that Forza 3 really nailed was they really leaned into this vibe of this whole racing festival centered around a music festival, basically. And with all the, you've got these 4 different festivals, 3 or 4 different festival sites that you're expanding, and the music is great, and the game just has so much style. But it's like this kind of subtle, laid back style. You got to look for it, to me, that's the big thing. And also, I love just the design of the world. You've got, you don't really have a lot of big cities to race around in the newer Forza games. Forza 5 has this little Mexican town, which is really impressive. Yeah. But, and Forza 4 has this kind of quaint, British town. But Forza 3 is this massive coastal city, and it's got a cool vibe to it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful game. But every Forza game is kind of special in their own right, and they always nail the environments every single time. Especially with Horizon 5, wow, they did such a great job with Mexico. I mean, that game is honestly, even though 3 holds a special place in my heart, there's something about 5 that is truly, I don't say this often, but it really is just when it comes to game design, it is pretty much perfect in every sense of the word. I mean, just from the details to the content to just what it provides, and that player freedom while still having that sense of structure is just, I mean, wow. I mean, it's just truly just one big wow, really, when it comes to Forza Horizon in general, really.
Yeah, I wish we had more of these realistic open world racers on the Switch. I really think, after all these years of the Switch's life, the only major AAA racer that I that is kind of a realistic kind of street racer, for lack of a better word, is Grid Autosport, which came out in 2018, and I really can't think of anything other than that.
I would say there's Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, I think.
Oh yeah, we did get a Switch version.
The other one, but I would say that Grid is the one more realistic in that, because Need for Speed is a little more arcadey. But yeah, it's a genre that is definitely lacking on Switch. But at the same time, we know that something like Forza would never run on Switch on the way that it runs on that. I think a lot of the appeal with Forza is how the game looks, because as Dennis just
Oh,
said,
totally.
it's just amazing. I love Forza 5 also. It just looks amazing. You get lost inside the world. So that's probably them. And also, let's not forget that the Switch has not analog triggers for R2 and L2, ZL and ZR. So usually those kind of games do not adapt very well on the console. But yeah.
True.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, maybe with the next system, maybe we'll get some more of those. Not Forza, but man can dream. All right, folks. Well, I know this was a longer episode. Thank you to everyone who has stuck with us till the very end. You guys are the real MVPs. This has been episode 11 of Nintendo Everything Refresh. If you like what you heard, you can follow us on either YouTube, if you like the video version. We are also on all of these streaming platforms, which you may already be listening to us on. Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Google Podcasts. We are on all of them and more. So if you like to listen to us that way, please go ahead and follow us so you don't miss our next episode. And we will be back at you next week. We've got a lot of big gaming news coming up over the next few weeks. We are going to have some hands-on impressions of some upcoming games. So definitely come back and stay tuned for everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. See you guys later.
Yep.
All right.
There you go.
All right, perfect.
Perfect.